Hello, my sweet children. We are looking at the Classkick genetics unit review. For some of us in first and second period, we did this in class. For some of us, this is an alternate unit study review, but I did want to give you essentially an answer key. So what I did was I clicked on CTLS where it told me to, and I clicked my link. It gave me my class code. So I'm going to go ahead and type in as Miss H, and we're going to go ahead and launch. Now, once I get to here, it first asks me, it says, welcome to the genetics unit review. Please follow all the instructions as each slide is a different activity. Please use the microphone feature to say your name and class period and how you felt about this unit. Now I have my microphone here. Yours might have a more drop-down window. You'll click that and see this microphone. If you get that you have blocked access to your microphone, it does not work in this browser, you have an Apple device, you don't have Google Chrome, something to that effect, I completely understand. This is not shown to anybody, but if you are a homie or a Zoomie, I don't really get to hear you a lot. I don't get to have conversations with you. So I really love if you were able to record audio here, but I completely understand if it's not. If you are unable, please go ahead and just hit that type and fill out that information for me, please. We're going to hit type, and anywhere you leave this box, you can make it a text box. Once I have that text box created, I can go ahead and make another, as many as I want. So I would have answered that question as Ms. Humphreys, class all the periods, and I felt that this is my second or third favorite unit, but it's still amazing. I'm going to go ahead and go, and it automatically saves as you go. Now the thing about Classkick is that I can see what everyone is doing. I can view everyone's work, so I can watch what you're doing. So I'm able to see the progress you've made. All right, we are on slide number 2, and it says the 2 different genotypes, 2 different examples of genotypes. Well, I know that a genotype are the genes, the letters, the code for the letters. And this says homozygous dominant. Well, I know from my root words that homo means same, and dominant means capital. So I will have 2 capital letters. That's an arrow, pardon me, 2 capital letters. And remember, I can choose any letter in the alphabet. It just has to be the same letter. So we could have done 2 capital A's, 2 capital B's, 2 capital F's, whatever you wanted to do, any 2 examples. Now our next is heterozygous. I know my root word hetero means different, so my letters had to be different. So this was an uppercase and a lowercase. And again, any letter. We could have had uppercase, lowercase, etc. Now our last one is homozygous recessive. Remember, our root word homo means same. So I'm homozygous and recessive. If dominant meant capital, recessive means lowercase. Think about a receding hairline, it's pulling back. So any 2 lowercase letters, again, the same letter. So we can have 2 lowercase a's, we can have 2 lowercase f's, I can have 2 lowercase y's, whatever letter, they just have to be the same. So that completes the slide. You only had to have 2 examples. So we're going to move forward, and the next one says, please use the draw tool to create 2 examples of phenotypes. Well, I know that a genotype is the genes, the code, so a pheno, PH, is physical. It is a phenotype. So I am going to draw 2 different phenotypes. Ms. Humphreys, I'm a terrible drawer. Everyone can draw hair. You select a color. I'm going to go with brown, and I'm just going to do, and that's my hair. Yes, does it look like a molehill? Sure. Should you maybe like draw a face so I kind of have some kind of idea? Maybe. If it looks like a potato, I get it. It's hair. Okay? The other favorite that we saw today was the eye. So this is clearly an eye. And then we colored that in with whatever color eye we had. So these were the most common 2 I saw today. And these are absolutely perfect answers. And that is as good as Ms. Humphreys can draw, so compare yourself to that and lower the bar. All right, number 4. Now, was it mean that I did not give an answer or a word bank to this? Probably, but I was hoping you'd remember. A homozygous allele, so homo meaning same, can also be called now your options were purebred and hybrid. Purebred and hybrid. So a homozygous is the same. Homozygous is same. So I'm gonna, oh, excuse me, that's not what I wanted to do. I just wanted to fill in this blank as a purebred. Purebred. Now, that means hetero is different. Heterozygous, meaning different, would be a hybrid. Remember, we had a hybrid car, we had hybrid flowers. It's a mix of two different things. So talking about homozygous and heterozygous, purebred and hybrids, we have our dominant and recessive. Remember, we have two different types of alleles. So an allele that always shows up, that person you will always hear in class no matter what, even when Miss Humphreys is trying to go over our warm-up, we have dominant. And remember, please don't judge my spelling. I teach science, not ELA. An allele that only shows up in homozygous. Well, it says homozygous is same. So what is the only allele that shows up if it's with its friend, if it's with the same? Who can I hear in the classroom? Only if we have quiet people. Well, that's going to be a recessive. Fantastic. And we're done with that slide, moving forward. All right, this says please fill in the blanks or the boxes with all the information you know about the word. So this is our vocab review. And I did go ahead and give you some pictures and a flowchart so we can kind of get the idea. Now, we know that a cell is the basic unit of life. Basic unit of life. And there are plant and animal. I know a nucleus is in eukaryotes because I'm a eu or eukaryote, and I know in the nucleus we have DNA. I know DNA is housed in the nucleus, which is in eukaryotes. Well, chromosomes, I remember Ms. Humphrey saying we have 46. I'm not quite sure what they are, but I know I have 46 of them, and if you have 47, you have Down syndrome. I got that part. But what they are is really tight, compressed DNA. So we're going to call this compressed DNA. Now, DNA, we know, is the building block. This is who we are as people. This is our code. And some of us learned that we had base pairs, A, T, C, and G. And we know if that A, T, C, and G don't go together, if there's a mistake in the DNA, it's called a mutation. Now, a section of your DNA that is a specific trait is called a gene. So this is a tiny section of DNA. But what it tells your body is what color hair, or that you'll have a hair color, that you'll have an eye color, that you'll have an ear shape. It doesn't say what shape it's going to be. It just says you're going to have it. So this is a section of DNA that codes for a trait. Now, the part that says what you're going to have, that's mom and dad, and you got an allele from each of them. And we know alleles come in pairs, one from mom, one from dad. Those alleles make up your traits. Those are your physical characteristics. Characteristics. Okay, y'all, please do not be concerned about spelling when you submit stuff. I understand. Like, don't tell your ELA teachers I say this, but look at this. All right, so inherited traits. So a lot of the time when we talk about traits and inheriting skills and talents, we talk about Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan. So Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant inherited height, being tall. They acquired athletic ability. Some of you heard my joke today that athletic ability. Some of y'all heard my joke today that Michael Jordan's father was a plumber. I don't know if that's true, but you don't either. Because you're not born an NBA star. You can acquire a skill and acquire a trait, but you inherit your physical characteristics. Okay, so that is our vocab review. Moving forward. Use the draw feature to finish the Punnett square. Scroll down to answer the question. So I know Miss Humphreys has told us a million times the top goes down. So I'm going to highlight my top, bring that down, just like she said 1,000 times. Top goes down. And then I know my left goes right. So just for my own color, so I don't get confused, I'm going to change colors. So I have my H and I have my H. Oh my goodness, I have 100% heterozygous. It's almost like Miss Humphreys told me and promised me that every time you cross a homozygous dominant, with a homozygous recessive, you'll get 100% heterozygous. So, if I have a capital letter in every single box, will their offspring ever show a recessive phenotype? Will this quiet little guy ever be heard with all these capital H's? Heck no, techno. A recessive only shows up if it's with another lowercase, that big H. You cannot hear over that person. So no, it is not possible for an offspring to show. All right, moving forward. It says use a draw feature to create a Punnett square crossing two heterozygous parents. Use any letter you want. Now, remember, I like to use letters that you can tell the difference between the capital and lowercase. So I'm going to do a capital A and a lowercase a, and it said heterozygous, so I know I'm doing different. So I have one capital and a lowercase, capital and a lowercase, and I know my Punnett square has 4 boxes. All right, and again, just so I keep things clear, I'm going to go ahead and change my colors. Top goes down, and changing again just so I keep it clear. Let's pick red. Oh, that's too close to the other one. Let's pick brown. A, left goes right. Top goes down, left goes right. Now, wow, I have 3 different genotypes. I have a homozygous dominant, a homozygous recessive, and a heterozygous. That is a lot of genetic variation. Let's look down at our next question. It asks us to use the type or draw, that says or, oh, Miss Humphreys. Use the type or draw tool to calculate the probability of each genotype. Well, we remember that probability means the likelihood. Each box is worth 25%. So I know that my capital A, which is a genotype, the coding for the letter, is in 1 box. That is worth 25%. I see the genotype capital A, lowercase a, in 2 boxes. That's worth 50%. And lastly, I see the genotype lowercase a as a 1 box, so that is 25% as well, and I am now done with this slide. Moving on. All right, we are on sexual versus asexual reproduction. So we are all the way up to last Thursday, so we're all the way up to a week ago. Now I asked you to use the chart to fill in, use the chart to fill in chart. Goodness, myself. Be sure to include how many parents there are, the number of parents, how quickly it happens, if the cell structure, if it's easy or difficult to do, and if the offspring is a clone or if it's identical. So I'm going to go ahead and use my type tool, and I'm going to answer all of those questions about sexual in a row, just to keep it easy for me. So I know they have 2 parents. It is a slow process. It can be up to 23 months or 22 months. I know that it is difficult. It is very hard because I have to find a mate. It takes a lot of energy. The egg and the sperm have to meet. The zygote has to grow. It's so difficult. And the offspring is it is a genetic variation. It is a combination. Genetic variation. It is a mix of 2 people, of 2 different genes. So that is my answer to that side. Now it is a Venn diagram, so we compare and contrast. So I'm going to answer all of the same questions on the other side. So I'm going to start typing again. And I know that asexual has 1 parent. It is quick, takes almost a split second if you're on binary fission. It is very easy, but their children are clones, and this is a bad thing. Remember, genetic variation is a good thing. Now, what do they have in common? Well, obviously, they're making an offspring, so it's reproduction, because that's what we're learning about, so that's reproduction. But also, no matter what, you still get the traits from your parents. Traits from the parents. There's nowhere else they're coming from. And that summarizes that slide. All the way to number 9, guys. All right, so if you are in Humphrey's 6th period or 7th period, you may skip ahead until you no longer see this slide. I chose not to cover this because it is kind of an extension, but my first and second, we did talk about this, and I do expect you to know this. So we're going to go ahead and review this. So mitosis and meiosis. So remember mito, M-I, mito means my toes. It makes your hair, skin, nails, nerve, liver, brain. It makes your body cells. So right here, I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop into occurs in body cells here. Now, meiosis, M-E, meiosis makes me. Now, we know that through our education of sexual reproduction that we came to be because an egg and a sperm underwent fertilization and created a zygote. So meiosis occurs in our sperm and egg cells. Now, if we think about the fact that our mitosis is our body cells, we want our body cells to replicate or to reproduce and make themselves identical over and over and over. It would be very strange if you were to get a cut on your shin and all of a sudden liver cells start growing. That would be unfortunate. It needs to be identical to what it was before. So we know that we need to have identical cells. And if humans start with 46 chromosomes and we are identical, we are going to end with 46 chromosomes. Now, we just said if I were to cut my shin or to stub my toe or break my arm, I need my cells to repair and grow my body. So that explains mitosis, is that it happens in our body, creates two identical cells, and we know that our cells have chromosomes, so basically just make another one of me, and that helps me repair and grow. That is why we didn't stay the size of a baby. How unfortunate would that be? If we just, that's it. You're like the opposite of Benjamin Button. You just stay a child forever. Not like Peter Pan, though. So meiosis, M-E makes me, so we know it's sperm and egg. So first of all, we know that's reproduction because we've talked about sexual and asexual reproduction. So we know that's reproduction. Now, just logically thinking, obviously this is 46, so this is 23, but logically thinking, wouldn't it make sense to have half of your DNA in a sperm or an egg? Each parent can't contribute 46. Your DNA can't, that's not how DNA works. It can't have that many messages and that many competing alleles. So you have to have half of your genetic code. So you end only with 23 chromosomes. And those are four different identical, or four different, you end up with four different cells. And that is how we become a combination of our parents, is through meiosis. So 6, 7, go ahead and come back. We're going to switch now. So we're going to give 6, 7 a second to notice that we are back. And this is, if we remember, called a pedigree. So we are looking at humans, and it specifies human because we can do a dog pedigree. We can do a tracing of any species, plants, animals, flowers, to see where a specific mutation or trait came from. This is not specifically for humans and diseases. This is for any species and any trait. So it shows us the sex, remember not gender, sex of the individual, who their offspring were, and we track a trait all the way through there. Now the first one says in this pedigree, squares represent males. If it is darkened, he has hemophilia. So hemophilia is a disease where if you get cut, you continue to bleed. If it's not shaded in, they have normal. If they get cut, they can clot. So it asks me how many males there are. Well, first of all, even if I miss Miss Humphrey's lesson, it says right here males are square. So all I have to do is count the squares. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 males. There's so many. I have 8 males. Oh, excuse me. So now it says how many males have hemophilia. Well, this tells me that if it's darkened, he has hemophilia, and I'm looking for men. So I'm looking for shaded in squares. 1, 2, 3. 3. I feel like Dora the Explorer, that was silly. 3. Now, Next, it says a circle represents a female. If it is darkened, she has hemophilia. If open, she has normal blood clotting. How many females? Well, it just told me females are circles, so I'm going to count my circles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 females. So I'm going to put an 8 right here. Next, it says how many females have hemophilia. Well, I know if it's a darkened circle, we have hemophilia. So I have 1, 2. I have two hemophiliac females. Now next it asks, a marriage is indicated by a horizontal line. That means think about the horizon, sunset or sunrise. The horizon is side to side, not up and down. How many marriages are there? So I see, and this says marriages. This should say parents. This should say parents because this is not a family tree. It doesn't show me divorces and step parents. It shows me lineage. So I have 1 set of parents, 2 sets of parents, 3 sets of parents. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4 generations. Notice the Roman numerals on the side. So this is not marriages. It's not marriages, it's sets of parents. So I have 3 sets of parents and 4 generations because my 4th generation has not had kids yet. However, these two had how many children? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These two people had 7 children. So I imagine this will continue to go on. Now it asks, is the trait dominant or recessive? In class, we looked at examples that had carriers, so we could see if it was recessive or dominant. This one's a little bit tricky because it skips a generation. So if this trait were to be dominant, it would have to show up in one of their children. So we know that this must be recessive because it skips a generation. Now, in most examples, we will give you a carrier if we ask you this question, so you can see that it is recessive. But I did ask you to go ahead and explain which way you thought. So I would love to see your thought process on that. And our last is drag each image to the correct section for natural or artificial selection. So we looked at most of these examples in class, and I have artificial and natural here. So I look at corn and I think we took this stalk, we split it into 2 different options. I noticed that this got me this got me this, and then I created this. So as we talked about in class, there is no such thing as non-GMO food. Corn did not naturally get bigger to fight, we made it larger. Okay, different than we look at this brown backing, it's much easier to find these green beetles against this brown backing, and these finches or birds prefer the green beetles. So as they eat the green beetles, we watch this population change. So this bird decided to eat that branch, so nature is deciding who is winning, so that's natural selection. Again, same scenario, this bird is able to see the bright colored mice a lot easier than the dark colored mice. So in that predator-prey relationship, the dark mice, the black mice against the dark charcoal background are able to live and reproduce to create the next generation. So we know that that is natural selection as well. Our next example is the chickens. We looked at that example in class and we talked about how we continued to breed the thick boy chickens to have a shorter lifespan, less feed, and more meat. Again, dog breeds, we talked about that in class, that all canines started from a gray wolf and that we domesticated or trained them to be our friends, and then we bred them for specific purposes. Obviously a dachshund, first of all, that word says dachshund, and that's just a pet peeve of mine. But this dachshund is not a hunting dog. That would not have been very helpful in Europe in the 1400s. So we've created different breeds. That is totally a human thing. And lastly, we have giraffes, and we know we talked about how giraffes got their necks so long because they had less competition for the food up high. So the ones with the longer necks lived longer and were able to reproduce. So that is natural selection. And that concludes our PowerPoint, or excuse me, our activity. And you are done. Once you have done that, it shows you all of your slides. It saved all of your progress. You can make sure that you are happy with all of your answers. And when you're done, you simply X out and I have your results. Thank you so much for reviewing, and please email me if you have any questions, and make sure to play the Kahoot if you need more practice.